Welcome back, guys. So today we got a pretty cool one for you. We're going to be converting this arcade stick into an actual Neo Geo AES controller. So I've already kind of teased this project a little bit, but what this is going to be useful for is if you own an original Neo Geo or you're looking to buy an original Neo Geo and you want a quality two-player controller. You don't want to buy individual controllers, you want a two-player panel. But the other cool thing with this is, yeah, I'm showing you using this Game Room Solutions panel that I think is flippin' awesome, but this technique and this easy solution can be used on anything. You can convert an old arcade stick that you have. You can make your own box. You could do whatever you want and do this at a very reasonable price, because really, on top of having the arcade stick already, to convert it to Neo Geo, AES or MVS, there's only a couple additional pieces that we need, and they are fairly cheap. And with this tutorial, we are not soldering anything. So that is a definite plus. Very simple and easy to do. So to start, what we need is your arcade stick. We're doing it with the Game Room Solutions Neo Geo panel, which, like I said, I love this thing, and I'm going to be doing some other tutorials with it. And what we're using today is a SNES stick with the little wiring harness that does come with SNES, and then our HAP style buttons with micro switches for our standard A, B, C, and D Neo Geo layout with our coin or select and start button. So with this, I'm using for the buttons the Zenmo wiring kit that comes with the Zenmo USB encoder. I have tons of these lying around, so I figured, screw it, I'll sacrifice one, because it's ultimately using the Zenmo wiring harness is extremely easy with this, because it makes the work a lot simpler. The reason being is because you do need to have each one of these buttons ground and have a single connection going to our port. So Zenmo does come with a daisy chain for ground, and essentially all these black wires, these are from the Zenmo kit. Typically they're all going to have a little connection on the bottom of these wires that connect to the USB encoder. So you could either use that, or you could buy different wires. It doesn't matter. You can solder the connections to the micro switches. You could just get these 0.187 quick disconnects, whatever the heck they're called, can't think at the moment, but you can use anything as long as you connect them to your micro switches and you have a lead on the other end. The Zenmo, there's a little port on the bottom that plugs into the USB encoder. Like I said, I just took a pair of scissors and just pulled it off, and it left me with about 1.5 mm to 2 millimeters of stripped wire at the end. And that was not me doing anything special with prepping these wires. That was just pulling them off, pulling the little connections off from the end. But if you don't go about it this way and you want to wire by buying your own wires, or different wires, that's fine. Just make sure you strip them at the end for how we're going to connect them. Make sure you have about 2 millimeters of exposed wire at the end. So with the daisy chain, essentially what the daisy chain is it's one long cable that connects to each one of the micro switches. And the Zenmo comes with a nice length of cable with a bunch of connections, and at the end you'd pretty much just snip it off, because there'll be a bunch of extra ones like I did here. I just cut off the end. So I started from here, worked my way around until I got to that button. So on the micro switch, try to show you as best I can here. This bottom part on the micro switches are ground. This is the part that's actually making the connection to register the button when it's pressed. So just keep in mind that this bottom one is ground, and that's where you'll be daisy chaining your ground to. Just something to point out with that. So once that's all done, you have your ground wired singly to where there's one end connection, and then you have each button, let me pull back out a little bit, when you have each button wired with its own lead, we're pretty much ready to go. Like I said, your SNES will come with this wiring harness, and the cable, the exposed wire, it's already stripped. It might be a little too long for how we're going to do this, so you might want to cut it down. It's probably about 4 millimeters long, and we really only want them to be about 2. So using a pair of scissors or something else, you can just easily trim them, and I'm going to go ahead and do that just a little bit, because I don't want the wires to be too long here. So I've got about 1.5 millimeters, 2 millimeters of exposed wire on the end of those, so I'm pretty much good to go. Now, after all that's done, the 2 other items that you do need, first is one that you're not going to actually use at the moment, but it's going to complete the project, is going to be a Neo Geo AES controller extension cable. So one end's going to be female and the other is going to be male. That is important. This is what we need. Typically you find these 6 feet. You can find them on Amazon or eBay. Typically eBay, you find them cheaper than Amazon. I'll give you the links to Amazon if you want to peep it out, but I would recommend going through eBay because you can get them quite a bit cheaper. I think Amazon's charging like, not Amazon, but the third-party sellers on Amazon are charging probably double per extension than what you can find on eBay, even within the States, being shipped within the US. So this is something you're going to need, but you're just going to set that aside because it doesn't come into play at this moment. Next thing you're going to need is going to be, for each side, you need one of these. So you need one controller extension and then one of these DB15 female non-soldering connections here. So this is pretty cool. I like these. They come out to about $7 or $8 a pop. They do come with some screws and a little mount that you really don't need. All you need is this unit right here. Boom. Awesome stuff. So there's a little clip that keeps it closed, and there she is. So this just removes from the housing. We can set the housing aside because it'll be a lot easier to do this without the housing. Now, try to focus here. Now, with the cool thing with this little DB15 female connection is not only does it come with the housing and it makes everything a lot nicer and cleaner, but you're just connecting your wires into the holes here and tightening the screw to mount them, so you're not soldering anything. Easy peasy. And all the pins are numbered exactly how you need them. There is one extra pin on here, and it is the one that says ground right there. Do not confuse that for what we are going to be grounding, because that ground is not connected to anything that the Neo Geo is connected to, I guess you would say. Our ground is actually going to be number 1, pin number 1. So I do have this little diagram that I'm going to show here, and I'll put a Dropbox link. You could probably find this online pretty easily, but what I did was color coded it to make it a little bit easier. So the directions, as you can see, this is essentially just, it's the DB15 connector, and then everything is numbered according to how this is numbered, 1 through 15. Pretty simple. So we do have several pins that are not used. I blacked them out. The plus 5 volt, we don't need it for this application. Number 2, we don't need it. Number 10, we don't need it. And number 9 is a duplicate of the D button. We don't need it. So what you can do is use this particular diagram, have that ready to go, have your little DB15 setup ready to go, and then you just need a little flathead screwdriver. It's kind of hard to focus here, but as you can see, just a little tiny flathead. So essentially what we're going to do is, let's just say first off we're going to put away the ground for now for the SNES and for the buttons. We're not concerned with the ground yet. But the first on the stick is the green cable. So the green cable is for left, as you see there. And left is number 14. So on our little bad boy here, we're gonna find number 14. Double check, make sure, loosen it up. And when you loosen it up, I'll show you, it opens up the little hole right there. As you can see, 14. It's opened it up so you can put a wire in there and then tighten it up. So let's go ahead and do that. We're gonna put our green, our left cable in there. Slide that bad boy in and then tighten it up. And that is good to go for our left. Next one is our yellow cable. And yellow is for right. And that's going to be number 6. So we'll go ahead and open up number 6. Slide that sucker in there. Hold it in place. And tighten it. Now you surely, if you really wanted to, you could just go in order 1 through 15. I just like doing it this way so I can kind of manage my cables a little bit. But you can do this however you so choose. So the next one on the SNES stick is the orange cable. And the orange cable is going to number 7, so right next to where we were just at. Open that up, slide her in there, close it up, and good to go. And then our last one up, which is the red cable, is going to go into number 15. Go ahead and open 15. And get her in there. Like I said, if these were too long, the leads or the exposed wire, you would have some like hanging out right here, and I'm just not comfortable with that. I don't want to accidentally short anything. So that's why I say about 2 millimeters of exposed wire is good for this application. And then our last cable that we do have for the controller is going to be our ground, and we're going to wait to do that. So next up, let's go ahead and do our A button. So A, if you can see our diagram here, is number 13. So we'll go ahead and open up 13. In there, close her up. And as you see, this is not tricky at all. This is like so simple. And I've seen people selling, you know, homemade DIY Neo Geo sticks where it's just one player for a couple $100, and there's a market for it for sure. You know, if you want to take this idea and start making Neo Geo controllers, more power to you. You know, I think it's pretty awesome. But for those who are really interested in DIY making their own stick, I think this is an awesome, easy solution. So next up, B, as you can see, is going to be pin number 5. I do have it color-coded there. So we'll open up 5. And this little color-coded diagram, like I said, you can find the non-color-coded one online, but I'll put a Dropbox link for this one, just in case it makes the job a little easier for you. Close that up. Next up is going to be C, and C is going to 12. Now, of course, you could always buy a female DB15 connector without all this and solder everything to it. I mean, that's really up to you. It'll be fairly cheaper than doing it this way. You can just get a simple female DB15 connector with the pins to solder to for a couple bucks or so. So yeah, you're paying $7 or $8 for this setup, for this DB15 female connector, but it saves you so much damn time. And it's just so dang easy. So the last button, D, that's going to 4. And then we just have a couple more to go here. So 4. And then the nice thing, like I said, with this, it does come with a little housing to make everything nice and neat. So next up, we are going to be doing our select button, which is this side. So that's going to number 3. Cool. And then our last button, which is start, is going to 11. And then we're pretty much done other than our ground. And I'll show you how I do the ground. Just 1 second here. Get in there, you little bastard. Okay, so now we've got all our buttons and controls done. You can go back and kind of, what I like to do now is kind of look at all of my connections and see if there's any exposed wire. For example, 13, I have a very small amount, so I'm going to go ahead and loosen that and push it back in there. Just to try to clean it up a little bit. Boom. So I'm happy with that. Now, our last step here is going to be our ground. And our ground goes into number 1 here. Let me refocus here. Number 1 at the end. Right there. So we'll go ahead and loosen that up. We'll open that up. Definitely, I'm kind of doing this quickly, but you could probably do this a lot cleaner than I have with the wiring, but it's all good. So what we are going to do now is get our ground from our SandLaw and then our ground from our daisy chained buttons, and we can either just take them both and pop them into that number 1 or kind of twist them together. So I'm going to try to, I don't have any wire strippers down here at the moment, so I'm just going to try to pull off a little extra with a pair of scissors to just twist the wires together. There we go. So I'm just going to combine them. See, we got the ground from the buttons and the ground from the stick. So let's just go ahead. I'm sure there'll be somebody out there that says, no, you shouldn't do it this way, but it works, and I don't see why not. Now, the one thing I think I pointed out earlier is that on this particular DB15 connector, there is that additional ground, but don't put anything in there. If you do, if you decide, oh, you know what, I'm gonna put my SNES into that ground and then my buttons into the 1 pin, it's not gonna work. You're not gonna have a proper connection, and your stick's not gonna wind up working. So just combine them and stick them into number 1. Tighten it up. And we're good. We're now ready to rock and roll. So we got a mess of cables here. Like I said, you could do this a little cleaner, a little easier, a little nicer than what I did. Just for tutorial's sake, I wanted to do this kind of quickly. But I'll definitely be tidying this up a bit later. So then with this little box, what we're going to do is just pop this sucker on this side. Pop it back into the housing. As you see, it's flush on the bottom here. And then we'll take all of our wiring and kind of scoop it up and fit it into that little hole there. Close it up. You can put some zip ties on here to kind of keep it nice. I'm probably going to clean this up a bit later. But that's it. You're wired up and ready to go. So now this is where the cable extension comes into play. So we have our female on our controller here, and then our male end of the extension simply plugs into there, nice and snug. And then this end of the extension plugs into your AES or your consoleized MVS. Pretty simple, easy to do. If you wind up using a different stick than the SNES, it's the same principle. Just figure out which connections on your stick are up, down, left, and right. And do the same thing. Follow the diagram for the DB15. Pretty easy stuff. Make sure your ground for everything, for whichever side you're working on, is all plugged into that 1 pin, the number 1 pin on your DB15 female connector, and then you will be good to go. So as you see, I don't know, I could have done this a little easier, but whatever. Have my controller, everything ready to go. Both sides of this stick are now compatible with my AES or CBox or whatever else I want to use this on. So later on, we're going to do another tutorial about dual purposing this for USB and Neo Geo AES or MVS. So we'll do that sometime in the future if there is interest. I'm going to do it anyway, so I might as well record it. Hopefully this little tutorial went on a little longer than I expected. I hope this helps some people. You know, definitely make your own stick, your own setup. Have fun with all that. Pretty easy stuff, guys. So thanks for stopping in. Smash that like button, subscribe, do all that cool stuff. And I will catch you guys next time. Peace out. Bye-bye.